This transcript comes from classified tape recording made at Camp David, Maryland during presidential briefing made between March 6th and March 8th of 1981. And we're going to get into the text of it now. Actually, there was William Casey was like the chairman of the meeting, but the primary gentleman who was custodian of the information was simply known as the caretaker. And in the transcript, he is only referred to as the caretaker. And the caretaker said, "I have been employed by the CIA for the past 31 years. I started the caretaking status of this project in 1960. We have a special group of people whom we call Group 6 that cares for all this information." Now pay attention here, this is the caretaker. He has been in charge of this information at this point for 20 years. How many presidents had come and gone in that time? So this is a very compartmentalized, very special group that exists beyond presidential control or understanding, actually. William Casey says, "Mr. President, code word it's called top secret code word. This information is beyond top secret, as I said before. It has its own classification. It is very compartmentalized." Caretaker. "The United States of America has been visited by extraterrestrial visitors since 1947. We have proof of that. However, we also have some proof that Earth has been visited for many thousands of years by various races of extraterrestrial visitors. All the debris and E.B.Es, extraterrestrial biological entities, recovered from the first crash site were taken to Roswell Army Airfield, Roswell, New Mexico. The captured surviving creature, which they just referred to as E.B.E, I'll refer to him as E.B.E, was treated for some minor injuries and then taken to Los Alamos National Laboratories, which was the safest and most secure location in the world. Special accommodations were made for E.B.E. The debris was eventually transferred to Dayton, Ohio, home of the Air Force Foreign Technology Division. The second crash site wasn't discovered until 1949 by some ranchers. There were no live aliens at this site. All this debris went to Sandia Army Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. E.B.E was housed in a special area at Los Alamos in Sandia Base, although many different military doctors, scientists, and a select number of civilians studied E.B.E. It never became upset or angry. E.B.E helped us learn from all the items found in the two crash sites. E.B.E showed us how some of the items worked, such as a communications device. It also showed us how various other devices worked. Okay. Caretaker. This is not the caretaker, but this is just kind of give you a feel of how it may have looked, the ambiance of President Reagan's briefing. E.B.E did explain where he lives in the universe. We call this star system Zeta Reticuli, which is about 40 light years from Earth. E.B.E.'s planet was within this star system. You have to bear with me. I'm not quite coordinated with these pictures here. But these are some of the areas. This is the Air Intelligence facility in Dayton, Ohio, where they study all foreign aircraft technologies. That's where Wendell Stevens used to work, by the way. This is Advisor 1. Mr. President, I was briefed many times on this subject matter, as Director Casey stated. This is a very, very complicated subject. I think it took me about a year to be fully briefed on all aspects of this matter. There are different areas: the initial crash, an investigative period, some attempts at contact, disinformation operations to protect the matter, and several other levels. President Reagan: "Oh wow, I didn't realize how complicated this was. I'm new at all this. I have a great responsibility to the citizens of this nation to make decisions based on accurate information presented by my advisors. You, all of you. I won't interfere in your presentation of this information, so I guess we'll proceed in the order you have chosen. I'm sorry for interrupting in this presentation, but as a person whose interest is beyond belief in this, I'll just shut up and wait to ask questions." William Casey: "Mr. President, please ask any questions you wish. You are the President. We are not here to argue with you over the order of this briefing, but some things are so highly classified that this briefing is the lowest level. If you ask a question that is in a different level, then we will have to reevaluate the audience." So it's like the president is totally at their whim, as if they could be telling him anything. And in President Reagan's position, they're his advisors, and he feels like he has to believe them. So if you had a diabolical intent behind this, you can see it would be easy to tell the president virtually anything you wanted to. But we'll go on. The caretaker. As to some history, the original project started back in 1947 was called Project Gleam. This project contained volumes of documented information collected from the beginning of our investigation of UFOs and identified alien craft, IACs. They don't refer to them as UFOs, they refer to them as IACs, identified alien craft. So if you report a UFO to the Air Force, they will honestly tell you we don't have a division for that. But maybe if you report, "I saw an IAC," there would be a long silence at the other end of the phone. The project was originally established in the early 50s, first President Truman, and then by order of President Eisenhower. And by the order of President Eisenhower on the control of the National Security Council. President Truman established a group of people to handle this project. The group was called Majority 12, or MJ-12. In 1966, the project's name was changed to Aquarius. The project was funded by confidential Black World funds, appropriated within the intelligence community's budget. The recovery of these alien spacecraft led the United States on an extensive investigation program to determine whether these aliens posed a direct threat to our national security. Okay. Some information was evaluated with the idea of using the gained data to advance our own space technology and future space programs. Let me read that again. Some information was evaluated with the idea of using the gained data to advance our own space technology and future space programs. That's a biggie, so remember that. The NSC felt that full disclosure could lead to a nationwide panic if we revealed everything we knew about UFOs and alien visitations. It was felt that the public awareness of these projects would have jeopardized the future space program of the United States. Releasing our secrets about UFOs and alien visitation would also cause a panic among religious leaders around the world. Therefore, MJ-12 decided that an independent scientific study of the UFO phenomena would be needed to satisfy the public curiosity. Now, this is interesting, and you could read my blog number 13, go to JimNicholsUFOArt.com, and I have a list of blogs on that site, blog essays. Blog number 13 is called Friendly Spook. Now, Wendell Stevens received an anonymous letter back when he was investigating the Billy Meyer contact from a gentleman who claimed to be an intelligence operative. And he, among other things, he confided that, yeah, the Billy Meyer contact was legitimate. But he also went into great detail explaining why the intelligence community felt they had to keep the UFO issue secret, because it would have created such an uproar within the religious community. And the military and the intelligence people did not want to get into a huge brouhaha with the religious leaders, so they thought the easiest thing to do is just keep it quiet and deal with it later. Later may be getting here sooner than we think. MJ12 feels confident that the aliens are on exploration of our solar system for peaceful purposes. However, we do have information that is at another level, that more than one alien species are visiting the Earth. And then they go on to explain that E.B.E came from a planet in a binary star system, which is Zeta Reticuli, that they named the home planet, they call it Serpo, which is interesting because it's the name of a reptile farm in the Netherlands. They, the E.B.Es, can travel that great distance by means of space tunnels. They seem to be able to bend the distance from one point of space to another. Just how they do this must be explained scientifically. And as the briefing goes, so you can read it in its full, the full document, President Reagan is becoming more and more frustrated because he's asked questions, and they keep telling him, Mr. President, I'm sorry, that's a different level. That's a higher level. We can't talk about that. Zeta Reticulum, that's where the ETs claim to come from. And this is how they get from one place to another using space tunnels or wormholes. So as you can see here, President Reagan is getting a little frustrated. President Reagan says, caretaker, I'm not upset. No, you are all of my advisors. As president, I must listen to you and take your advice. I'm not upset. I'm sorry for giving you that impression. Can you tell me how many different species have visited us? Caretaker, Mr. Director, as if the caretaker has to get permission from William Casey to continue this question. William Casey says, go ahead, caretaker, answer the president's questions. The caretaker, at least 5. We have little intelligence on 4 of the 5. We have plenty of intel on the E.B.Es, or the E.B.Es. Gee, they've given us everything we asked for. They have also helped us to understand the other 4 species. I'm afraid to say, Mr. President, and please don't misunderstand my words, but we think one of the species is very hostile. William Casey, Mr. President, do you wish for us to continue on this track, or would you like something more private as to the discussion of this topic? Reagan, for Christ's sakes, I'm the President of the United States. I should know if we are endangered by some threat from outer space. If you have something to say about a threat posed by this one species of aliens, then I want to hear it. William Casey, Mr. President, we have intelligence that would indicate this one species of aliens have abducted people from Earth. They have performed scientific and medical tests on these humans. To the best of our knowledge, no humans have been killed, but as Advisor once stated, the intelligence is from witnesses, and we haven't thoroughly evaluated this intelligence. We've captured one of these hostile aliens. This gets into some very, very sensitive areas, Mr. President. I strongly suggest we end this discussion and move on to any further questions you might have, and then get back to this. I don't think we are prepared to provide you with accurate answers to your questions about the potentially hostile aliens at this time. President Reagan. Okay, but I expect this to be given to me as soon as possible. I want to know everything about these hostile creatures. So we should start forming policies on how to deal with them. Advisor 1, do we have operational war plans on this? Advisor 1, yes, Mr. President, we have war plans on all potential threats to our country. President Reagan, please let us not forget the world. If these creatures attack some other country, we should help. Advisor 1, Mr. President, we have absolutely no evidence that this particular alien race has any plans to attack the United States of America or planet Earth. President Reagan, I guess we really got off the original subject, but I want to know of any threats. Don't hide anything from me. Is that understood? Okay, let us continue. How many other presidents have received this briefing? The caretaker. Mr. President, I have briefed President Nixon, President Ford, and you, but President Carter was never given the entire briefing. I have no answer as to why he wasn't given this briefing. Advisor 4. Now, as for the other 4 species, we know they have visited us in the past and will visit us again in the future. We are like a petri dish within the universe. We are a diverse planet. We must be very interesting to other extraterrestrials. I'm sure other intelligent life forms in the universe must have some sort of communications among the sentient life forms. Maybe they broadcasted that Earth has intelligent life. Maybe that is why we are being visited. And that's a good point. You think about the diversity of life on our planet, the diversity of DNA that would be available to other species on other planets to tinker with and to collect as they wished and take them to their own home worlds. Planet Earth, a petri dish. Okay. However, I personally believe that we must prepare for the eventual day when some hostile life form decides to take over our planet. We must be prepared. I hope you understand why I said that, Mr. President. We call them hostile because they tend to land, take humans, conduct experiments on them, and then release the humans. Caretaker. Mr. President, we call the hostile aliens simply that, HAV, meaning hostile alien visitors. MJ-12 placed that code on them back in the 50s. So they knew about this all the way back to the 50s. This is 1981. President Reagan is just hearing about this. President, you mean to say the HAVs have been visiting us and kidnapping our people since the 50s? The caretaker. Mr. President, the 5 species are called E.B.Es, arqueoloids, quadloids, haploloids, and trantiloids. I found this picture from ID4, the movie ID4, Independence Day, and I thought this sounds pretty much like what they're describing the trantiloids look like. Mr. Casey, we have a trantiloid, but it is dead. We captured it in 1961 in Canada, and we held it in captivity at Groom Lake until 1962 when it died. Advisor 4, these aliens can imitate humans. They can look like blonde humans. However, they are not blonde, but ugly-looking insects. They have the ability to change their bodies. As I said before, they are 1,000 years ahead of us in technology and probably every other science. Mr. President, can they be killed? Advisor 4, yes, they are just flesh and blood, like a human body. They can be killed, but their spaceships have a force field around them. They can be shot down, but it takes some doing on our part. HAV, hostile alien visitors. Caretaker. In order to protect all of this information and the fact that the United States government has evidence of our planet being visited by extraterrestrials, we developed over the years a very effective program to safeguard the information. We call it Project Dove. It is a complex series of disinformation operations by our military intelligence agencies to disinform the public. As you know, Mr. President, we have some highly classified aircraft. In order to keep these aircraft secret, we tend to convince at times the public and press that maybe UFOs are real, in order to make the public think that what they are seeing are actually UFOs instead of our own secret aircraft, even though we know maybe some of the sightings are of actual UFOs. As I said before, this is complicated, but it is a form of counterintelligence. We give the public some actual facts and let them run with it. The rest is taken care of by them. If you consider the first person who helped us in this disinformation campaign, Mr. George Adamski back in the early 50s, and up to all the movie productions of UFO-related movies. This helps the public to keep their minds open, but also allows us to keep our secret aircraft away from the public's knowledge. So George Adamski, if you study the George Adamski case at all in any depth, it is a very confusing and complicated case because he was debunked as a hoaxer. And in fact, there was a group that wanted to file a lawsuit against him, a class action lawsuit against him for defrauding the public. And CIA Director Alan Dulles intervened and would not let that case go to court. So that's pretty heavy artillery for a California crackpot. And all the movies, did you hear what they said? All the UFO-related movies, going back to the 50s. I mean, it's staggering to realize. And I stand before you here today as a result of all those movies. I never saw a UFO as a kid, but I loved all the Hollywood movies about flying saucers. And that's one of the things that inspired me to be an artist and do paintings of UFOs, because of the disinformation that Hollywood has been selling to us all these years. Okay? I'm a product of that. And part of that program was to create a certain curiosity and familiarity so UFOs wouldn't be frightening. So people like Steve was talking about, this lady who sees a UFO and she breaks into tears. It's like her reality was shattered that much that she was moved to tears. So this is the kind of double standard that we've been living with since the 1950s. It's like, oh, we'll keep it a secret. We'll make people think they're all crackpots if they see one. How many people do you know who've seen a UFO and are afraid to tell their own family about it? They're afraid to tell their wives, their husbands, their daughters, their parents, their next-door neighbors. Oh, they'll think I'm crazy. But I can tell you, after being a UFO investigator since 1980, I can't tell you how many people have come to me like I'm their confessor. Says, I can tell you I saw a UFO, but I can't tell my family. I can't tell my wife. She'll think I'm crazy. And I have heard this so many times that it staggers my imagination. I said, this is a much more widespread phenomenon than we ever dreamed it would be.